And we should be good to go, Mr. President.
Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Wooster City Council held by Zoom video conference and YouTube this Monday, May 3rd, 2021. It's after 7:30 p.m. The next meeting will be held on Monday, May 17, 2021. If you would, Mr. Paulo, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Ansel,
Here.
Mr. Bostancic,
Here.
Mr. Cavan,
Here.
Mr. Myers,
Here.
Mr. Sanders,
Here.
Mr. Silvestri,
Here.
and Ms. Warden.
Here.
Well, we have a full complement, so we do have a quorum. The agenda will remain as presented. And at this time, I ask that you stand and join the members of City Council in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, it's certainly hard to believe a fourth of the year has gone by. April went by in a blink of the eye. And here we are in May, and it looks like April showers actually are coming in May if you look at this week. So anyways, speaking of April, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 19th, 2021.
So
So
moved.
moved.
I saw Mr. Silvestri's second. Who was the first one? Mr.
John.
Mr. Ansel moved to approve. Mr. Silvestri seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, the minutes of April 19th, 2021 have been approved. Welcome, Mayor. Hope you had a good weekend. And, looking forward to hearing what you have to say this evening.
All right. Thank you, President Bitendijk. And yeah, it was an awesome weekend. I think we're all looking forward to those nice sunny, warm days coming at us. So just to bring you up to speed on things, we've actually had a busy couple of weeks since the last time we met with you. I'm going to start off with, oops, I got some feedback going on there. Don, can you dial that out?
Yeah, does anybody have YouTube or anything on? Or maybe Bill, do you have two things going? I'm going to mute one of yours, Bill.
I can see you guys now because I tried to join in with on the browser, and it'll go to your picture, and then it'll go to the meeting, and then it keeps flashing my phone number in between.
Bill, can you mute your because it's not, I'm not showing that it's letting me do it. Can you, well, actually over here, I think I can do it. Okay, I gotcha. Let's see if that worked.
Oh, can you see me now? I just turn on my camera.
Yes, can you hang up the phone?
Okay.
That's our problem. Okay, perfect.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I didn't want to waste this great news that we received last Friday. Wooster was chosen for a transportation alternatives program. We will receive up to $436,000 in TAP grant funds. In addition, we're awarded a safety program additional funding of $400,000. So bringing it to a total of $836,000 for the bike trail that will connect Melrose Drive along Milltown Road over to Friendsville Road. So it closes that loop that we've been building. And this was a huge thing that we were hoping to receive, and it finally came through for us. So our thanks to Roger Kobylarczyk and the engineering team, and to Jonathan Millay, our economic development team and grant writer, for all their hard work in putting this grant request together. These funds will be available on July 1st of 2023, which sounds a long way out, but in reality, it will take that long to get everything ready to get that grant because we have all the engineering to do. But nice input of federal and state dollars into our community with that grant. There have been 2 transitions in our community announced since our last meeting. The first is Tom Pukas, president of the Wayne Economic Development Council, has decided to step down after 4 years of leading the WEDC. Tom said, "I will always cherish my time here in Wayne County." And Don Noble, chairman of the WEDC, said, "We appreciate everything Tom has done for the WEDC and the Wayne County community." Tom will be here until the end of this May. The second is Michael Tefts, a superintendent of Worcester City Schools, has announced that he will be leaving Worcester City Schools for a position with Revere School System in the Bath Richfield area. His tenure with Worcester City Schools will end at the end of June. Both of these gentlemen have played a huge role in our community, and we are sorry to see them leaving, but wish them well in their new endeavors. We also would like to announce the honoring of 2 of our Worcester police officers. Patrolman Christopher Hartzler was chosen by the Children's Services Board as the Law Officer of the Year for 2021. This is a very high honor, and we congratulate him on representing our city so well. Also, Patrolman Daniel Whitmore was selected by nominations from his peers and chosen by Chief and administration as the 2020 Officer of the Year. Again, a very high honor, especially when it's from your peers that you received that nomination. So we congratulate both of those patrolmen for leading our city so well and for making us proud as a community. And finally, we believe we are nearing a time that the City Council will be able to meet again in person. The COVID vaccines have been decreasing the disease to where the governor is loosening the restrictions. The admin team would like to glean from City Council when that would be agreeable to start meeting again in person. I know Lynn has been trying to make some contacts to gain that information, but if you as a group would want to discuss that in the miscellaneous section of the meeting, we will then take those marching orders from you and move forward. So that's everything I have tonight, Michael, and I turn it back over to you and the rest of City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we do have one petition. It's for a liquor permit from the Wayne Center for the Arts. If you would please read that, Mr. Paul.
From the Ohio Division of Liquor Control, a petition from Wayne Center for the Arts, 237 South Walnut Street, Wooster, Ohio, 44691. They are looking for a D5H permit.
Okay, as you all are aware, and you probably bored when I tell you this, we can request a hearing here in the county seat of Worcester, request a hearing down in Columbus on this permit application, or we can waive having a hearing. What is your pleasure?
Motion to waive the hearing, Mr. Beitendijk.
Motion to waive the hearing by Mr. Myers. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cav.
Second by Mr. Cavan. Would you please call the roll on the motion to waive the hearing?
Mr. Ansel,
Yes.
Mr. Bostancic,
Yes.
Mr. Cavan,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Sanders,
Yes.
Mr. Silvestri,
Yes.
Ms. Warden.
Yes.
Okay, we will waive the hearing, and if you would, Mr. Paulo, send down to the Department of Liquor Control with the appropriate mark, a box mark that we do not request a hearing. I appreciate it. Thank you. No committee reports and no public hearings tonight, so we'll roll right into unfinished business. which is ordinance number 2021-18. It's
Mr. Bidendyke, we do have comments from the public.
Oh, I'm sorry. I completely glossed over it because it got chopped out of mine. So if you would, let's proceed right to the comments from the public.
So just to give everyone some background on this, I did think that since I thought there were going to be significant comments, that it would be easier if those individuals sent me emails rather than try to fit everything into multiple YouTube comments. So based on that, we had several people do that. And so I'm going to start with a letter from Anno Planick. It says, "Dear Worcester City Council members, this has been a long and arduous journey for both of us. Our neighborhood has been subjected to 2 years of various plans suggested for the melrose parcels. The last 2 plans have come with requests for a zoning change. The first from R1 to R3. The current one requests R1 to PD in ordinance 2021-18. 2 years ago, the mayor sat at our neighborhood meeting in our home and told us we were lucky to have the protection of this R1 designated land abutting the rear of our property. We believed him. Please look at the map representation of the proposed development inlaid into our R1 neighborhood and tell us how these neighborhoods are compatible. They will have no significant adverse impact or will somehow protect our existing residential neighborhood. These are all requirements of the criteria for zoning map amendments. We wonder why the rules, zoning map amendment review criteria, for allowing a substantial deviation from the existing R1 zoning designation seem to be waived aside in the name of progress. We have detailed these in previous correspondence. This so-called progress comes at a price. We are the collateral damage. Our neighborhood will be changed forever from a single-family home ownership suburban flavor to a high-density rental neighborhood with home dwellers who are mobile. We feel we have been sold out and betrayed. Good business decisions come with correct solutions to the problem. Picking this property to relieve the pressure of a low housing stock is a poor solution. Where is the city conversation with property owners of large tracts of land in the North End, which are clearly more compatible with a higher density rental neighborhood? Questions we hope you will consider before voting. 1, how can you approve a plan that has not shown any representation of the most predominant type of housing, the 8 units of 8 small apartments? Do these kinds of apartments meet the needs of employees sought by business? By approving the zoning change, the preliminary plan is also accepted according to PD guidelines. 2, what high density neighborhoods other than Milltown Villas, which only have a few R1 homes on the side of its development, have been built in the middle of an R1 neighborhood? Is this a new precedent for city housing? 3, have any of you physically been in our neighborhood in the past year? Can you tell how we are different from the current proposed plan? Have you seen the condition of our street? Chip and seal, dusty and crumbled. 4, have any of you reached out to the neighbors who have contacted you during the many recent calls and letters with the current legislation? 5, who will take responsibility for the adverse effect we will suffer from this excessive water damage? We have had to tolerate 2 years of plan after plan to get this juncture. We deserve the same consideration as any established R1 neighborhood, which has undeveloped R1 property in our midst. A no vote signals a desire to protect existing R1 neighborhoods, adherence to the comprehensive plan, and planning specifications, and a proactive effort to seek sites for higher density homes in compatible zoning districts. Keep this track to R1. We need single family homes to be built here, much more than rentals. The business representatives have said as much as they look for permanent employees. As elected representatives, you represent us. Please stand with us and work for a better long-term solution in the housing concerns of Worcester. Sincerely, Ann and Richard O. Planick. Is there anyone who wants to respond to that one? If not, I'll move on to the next. So we have a email from Tom.
Mr. Scavelli,
Yes.
I do think that there are some interesting points brought up, and I don't know if maybe the Lemon Development would be willing to help answer some of those questions. I know you asked for responses. In terms of compatibility, there are some major issues with compatibility of the proposed area and the surrounding R1. I know that the developer has taken steps to do their best to put a layer of single family unattached houses around the outside of the property, but there is significant information to support those properties, but the 8 section rental units, there really was not a lot of information in the packet. So I will kind of ask that question again and see if we can maybe get some resolution to that.
Okay, do we have a response from Lemon Development?
Sure, this is Patrick Mackey with Lemon Development. The 8-unit, 1-story apartments, they'll be made up of 1 and 2 bedroom units, ranging from the smaller, the 1 bedrooms would be about 645 to 650 square feet, and the 2 bedroom would be about 1,080 square feet. Again, I think we've said this a couple times in the previous meetings. These are all concepts. Today, our priority obviously is to get the rezoning, and if we are fortunate enough to move past the next stage, then we'll be looking at finalizing everything. Again, this was a kind of concept plan that we attached to the request.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, then we have a email from Tom Bump, and Mr. Bump says, "Dear Mr. Scavelli and Worcester City Council members, I am writing to lend my voice with my neighbors to ask you to resist this push to rezone the property in question to planned development, or PD. This would be a huge mistake for Worcester and for the neighborhoods around it. I observed the recent council meeting where several of my neighbors spoke to you and shared plenty of wisdom as to why you should not rezone this to PD. What I witnessed was shocking and very disappointing, to say the least. I have moved into this community 2 years ago. We chose Mel Lane because of its location and its surroundings. We wanted to live in a quiet part of town, and Mel Lane fit us as a family. Since that time, we've watched our street become a torn up, dusty, unsafe street. Now we are basically watching the city council force our community to receive housing in our area that is not compatible or supported. I have never seen a council that has been more dismissive than the Worcester City Council has been in this process. I fully understand that your minds were already made up and you view this change as something great for the city of Worcester. I understand that you will probably dismiss all of our neighbors and our opinions about this rezoning. It is sad that people who were elected by us and are supported to represent us, are supposed to represent us, are totally failing to do so. I am praying you will reconsider this and stop and think, would I want to live next to this? Would I want my property value affected by this? Renters don't raise property values, they decrease it. They don't stay in our area and they move on. I have yet to see real evidence that this will bring all that you claim it will for local businesses. All I can do is write this email and hope you will take a second look. I will be watching your vote, as the others have stated. I will be working to elect future council members who truly listen to the citizens. I again state, as a person who lives on Mel Lane, I oppose the proposed change and ask those who represent us on Mel Lane to vote no." Any response to Mr. and Mrs. Bump? Okay.
If I could, John, I would just state that, Mr. Bump implies that we have, just continued to push for development in that area and not listen to the neighbors' concerns. And I would disagree with that. We have discussed at length on numerous occasions a number of different development opportunities in this area, and not one of them has passed city council thus far, which to me means that we have taken all of the different perspectives into consideration. So yeah, I just wanted to respond to him.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Scavelli, I'd like to put some historical context into his comments. 2 years ago, the city was approached by a developer that had put together an R1 development with approximately 70 homes. The on Mel Lane at that particular moment in time pushed hard about not wanting any type of development behind them, and then also furthering making additional concerns about the fact that the new development was going to have to, under city design criteria, was going to have to attach to Mel Lane. We at great length listened to their concerns about the attachment and the traffic flow of all these 70 people would all use Mel Lane to go to the east and not use Melrose or Smithville Western in a different fashion. And so the statement that that gentleman has made in his email is not entirely true. And there has been, to the point of Ms. Warden, there has been a lot of conversation about this. And from the beginning, it's been a pushback of no, regardless of what the option is. So at this point, we have a legitimate request for zoning change. And it's our duty not only to the 50 or 60 residents in that area, but the other thousands that live in the community to make a decision based on the facts. Thank you.
All right, so next up, we have an email from Merlin Peterson. And he says, I have some concerns based on recent conversations and comments made by our administration. Mayor Bennerman said publicly that comments made are not binding unless written and accepted. I understand that. Mr. Montgomery indicated the city has total faith in recent related traffic study and no traffic would be entering Mel Lane. I accept that the well thought out traffic study. We in the Mel Lane community have come to accept the reality of future development between Melrose and Mel Lane. We would like to add an amendment to that recent legal action allowing the zoning change of the mentioned property from R1 to PD. Administration has said that they will only use that side street for emergency purposes and it will be blocked so no local traffic can pass through. Please add an amendment that is legally binding, indicating that the side street will be permanently closed except for emergency use, and the city at no time will have any option to reopen it for any future purpose. I am confident that the city will do the right thing to protect and respect the members of the Mel Lane community. However, if the city refuses to support that clause, that makes it clear to me that the city has no intention of honoring their own statements. Additionally, as we had discussed, what happens to the Lemon Group sells the assets of that development, or if Lemon goes bankrupt, who then controls this development? I will just tell everyone I spoke to Mr. Peterson today, and I think I assuaged his doubts on these, but I thought it was still an important letter to bring up just so the general public understands how this works. And Andrew, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the way that the plan development works is that tonight, through granting the zoning, we're also approving the preliminary plan. Then once the final plan goes into place, then that is it, and that's tied to that zoning from there on out. Future owners of the property are also tied to that zoning as approved. In this case, also, the closed road for emergency traffic only is part of that plan, and it can only be changed upon going to Planning Commission again. And so based upon that, it's basically already approved as something that, there needs to be further action by the city to change it. And so I believe that answer assuaged Mr. Peterson as to his concerns on this, but Andrew, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, John, that's absolutely correct. The preliminary plan and the development text are both bound with the rezoning request, and that includes the limited access to that street to the east to Mel Lane.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to move on then. The next email is from Ellen Hammond. And Ellen says, Dennis and I support the growth on Melrose. However, the zoning change does not seem compatible with our neighborhood. Please consider a no vote. Next up, we have an email from Val Williams and his wife, and it says, City Council members, we are writing to again express our concerns over the proposed rezoning from existing R1 to PD on the 21.87 acres of Yakaparo Farm, ordinance 2021-18. First, we repeat that we fully understand and continue to support the need for additional housing for the city of Worcester to maintain appropriate, well thought out growth, but not at the expense of our R1 neighborhoods that surround the acres in question. Notwithstanding the several neighborhoods that are multi-zoned, our situation stands alone, and just because the city has previously allowed questionable zoning / rezoning decisions does not make this proposed R1 to PD a viable decision. It is without merit, and those that support such decision do not have the best interest in mind for the citizens of Worcester, that are longtime tax-paying property owners. As my wife so succinctly puts it, the citizens of Worcester that are okay, sorry, I skipped the line. My wife succinctly puts it, you cannot expect to resolve the housing shortage by building 141 high-density rental units on basically a postage-sized parcel of land. This sets an unacceptable precedent for other neighborhoods adjacent to the undeveloped property. Those industries that are calling for additional housing will still have similar percentages of jobs going unfilled. Ask the employers what the average worker longevity is and how many of the open positions are basically the same ones each month because of the pool of current applicants for employment who rotate around for slightly better wages. There are too many units too close together for very little green space. Have the businesses thought about the quality of life for their future employees, or just that they will temporarily have bodies to fill the job openings? Has the city of Worcester thought about the well-being of the residents in this high-density plan, as well as the surrounding R1 homes, or just that they will have more tax monies? With the high-density plan comes environmental issues such as air quality, with increased vehicles, increased noise, and increased traffic. The additional traffic potentially doubles the 141 units, as there will be dual income families with people traveling to the new industrial park. There will be increased bus traffic to the schools. When Menards and Meyer come to town, the traffic will increase with Smithville and surrounding areas. Yet Lemon's traffic study shows no need to change the roads. One further thought, rentals are just that, rentals. And this does not necessarily lead to stability or workforce, let alone property maintenance. Also, a council comment regarding those neighbors who reside in Scottish Highlands is factual to some extent, but misleading. The property owners of Deer Creek do not have the rental apartments in their backyard abutting their property, but are separated by Route 83 and then by the 100-foot setback to the first apartment building. Most Deer Creek homeowners cannot even see the apartment buildings. We take exception to another council comments. While that option rentals may be what you would prefer to happen, that is the future we all have as property owners in an expanding community. To accept this type of logic is self-defeating, not in the best interest of Worcester residents, and not an attitude that should be supported. In summary, we are against the rezoning from R1 to PD and building high-density units into our neighborhoods. We trust that upon thoughtful review by council members of the facts and supporting letters from concerned citizens, that the property will remain R1 and a developer will meet the currently zoned requirements. We have an email from Robin Spade. Robin Spade says, we have questions regarding the property. Why so high density? 2, will there be a guarantee of emergency access will not be open to the public? Why so many rentals needed instead of homes in the city of Worcester? Guarantee our property values won't decrease. And 5, new traffic study. So those are some questions. I don't know if anyone wants to respond to those particular questions. Okay. Moving on then. Let's see. Okay, so I have one that came from Jonathan Millay for the business owners, but before I get to that, I've got a couple things that are online. He mentioned, so Val Williams again mentions that the proposed development was to be funded via TIF and not rejected for building R1 homes. And then Don Noble, on behalf of the Wayne Economic Development Council, we support the need for additional housing in Worcester. Our business members have communicated this request to us loud and clear for their employees. And on that note, I do have a letter from Jonathan Millay writing to represent the business owners who have come to the previous meetings. And Jonathan writes, Dear Mr. Scavelli, since the previous council, the following have shared their continued support for the Melrose project as proposed with ordinance 2021-18 via email and or verbally with economic development. Tim Swift from Worcester Brush Company, Kevin Weldy from Tech4 USA, Tom Pukish and Don Noble from WEDC, as you've just heard. Additionally, Ms. Melissa Pierce at Wayne Community Action, who have also shared 2 peer-reviewed studies in follow-up to questions asked of her that address the following. 2019 WE Upjohn Institute for Employment Research states, new market rate housing construction can improve the market for housing in low and middle income neighborhoods, even in the short run. Increases in market rate construction are thus likely to improve affordability, even for housing units that bear little similarity to the new construction. And two, to address the concern that new development may negatively impact the surrounding single-family apartments or single-family properties, a Harvard study shows the effect of multifamily properties, measured the possible impact of a range of property types on surrounding property values, and concluded that large, dense multifamily rental developments do not negatively impact the sales price of nearby single-family homes. Finally, Ms. Pierce said, we're happy to share these studies with anyone interested, which are contained below with Ms. Pierce's comments. This follows previously expressed support from Tom Marting of Gojo Industries, Andrew Dix at WEDC, Susan Marler, is it Marler, Jonathan? Okay, Susan Marler, Chair of the Worcester Area Chamber of Commerce, and Scott Boyes of the Worcester Community Hospital. Please let me know if I can provide any further information. Thank you. And I believe those are all the comments that I have, both in email and online. So if there's no further comments, I turn it back over to you, Mr. President.
Mr. Scavelli, I just wanted to say, I think I got an email earlier from, Terry, I don't know how to say his last name, Carabine or Carabine,
Okay.
asking, I mean, it was directed to you. It looks like he emailed all of council asking for this to be read.
I might have missed it. Let me see. Cherry.
It was at 3:18 this afternoon.
Oh, okay, I might have missed it. I have it right here, so I will go ahead and read it. Mr. Scavelli, I would like City Council and the administration to address these comments and questions in the May 3rd meeting. I emailed the clerk on 4/28/21, checking to see what the 4/19/21 meeting minutes would be published, and received no response. I was hoping to review both the public and administration comments before today's meeting. 2, I am opposed to the rezoning on Mill Lane area property. Without zoning guidelines, what assurance does a residential property owner have that the city and the developers will not target their neighborhood next? 3, why is Lemon Development not interested in the Craycraft and Noble properties on Milltown Road? Both parcels are already zoned R3, which would fit their plans without creating a public zoning outcry. I am aware of the proposed Oldman Road, WCSD, Noble, Lemon, and City deal. 4, why doesn't the city allocate part of the 5L farm for multifamily housing? According to city leaders, land for housing is an immediate need. From Terry Carabine or Carabine, I'm not sure. Okay, any response to Mr. Carabine's questions? All right.
Mr. Scavelli, would the administration like to respond to that? I think Mr. Carabine does bring up some very good points.
What parts do you want response to, Mr. Silvestri?
I mean, I know we are probably, we're far down the line here, but I think the point is well taken that there are places that are zoned R3 that are much more compatible for this type of a development than trying to rezone the current R1 property as this proposal does. I think obviously maybe there's not an immediate answer to that question. People can sell their property to whoever they wish, but I think that's something the council should consider.
That's you answered your own question with that. You're absolutely right. We still live in a free country where people who own land are allowed to sell the land. And so when that comes forward, then you look at the appropriate zoning of that land if it is either being requested as a rezoning or something that's coming in from outside of the city boundaries. So that's what has happened. Mr. Yacaprero, who owns the property, has brought this forward with Lemon Development, asking for a rezone of that property to a housing development. They put together a plan, actually numerous plans, the latest being a planned development, which was recommended by our city planner, who has 10 plus years, probably 15 plus years in the planning realm. And this is what he is recommending would be a good fit because it addresses a easing from one district into another. And that's exactly what is being presented tonight. Now, if some of those other areas come forward, and yes, probably will. There are things in the works that I'm not at liberty to even talk about at this point in time. But until somebody brings them forward, we are not a dictatorship where we go out and force people to bring land in and the purpose of it. We respond as we should as a community. So I'd also like to just take this moment to say that as far as Mel Lane, no one in the whole process has ever recommended a change of zoning of Mel Lane. It is still an R1 zoned property and will stay that way as far as I know. So there's some twisting of my words from a meeting of the neighbors that I did attend a few years ago to help them understand what was being recommended and brought forward, and to listen to them. I don't like it that now my words are trying to be twisted to fit their need. As I say, Mel Lane is still an R1 and will continue being an R1 until someday in the future when I'm probably long gone, and yourself also, Mr. Silvestri. So those are my comments.
I do have 2 more comments from Mr. Williams that popped in since we talked, and he said he just wanted to let us know that the issue that the reason that the R1 plan did not go through was because well, they did not want direct traffic on Mill Lane, and also residents did not want the city to possibly consider costly taxpayer paid improvements to our street to support the new homes. And with that, I do not think I have any more further comments, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much. No committee reports and no public hearings, so that brings us to items 6 on the agenda, unfinished business. It'll be ordinance number 2021-18. It's on its second reading. It'll be presented by Mr. Sanders. Mr. Paulo, would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2021-18, an ordinance amending Part 11 zoning of the codified ordinances of the city of Wooster, Ohio, so as to amend the zoning map at certain parcels on Melrose Drive.
Mr. Sanders, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not sure that this requires a whole lot of additional discussion, at least from the standpoint of a background for what we're proposing to do this evening, or what we're proposing to discuss. And with that, I would motion to suspend the rules of council and place ordinance 2021-18 on third and final.
Mr. Sanders has moved to suspend the rules, and is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ansel. If you would please, Mr. Paulo, call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
No.
and Bastancik.
Yes.
Okay, the rules are suspended. I look to you again, Mr. Sanders.
I would motion to adopt ordinance 2021-18 in compliance with sections 1105.03 of the city of Worcester's codified ordinances.
All right, Mr. Sanders has moved to adopt ordinance 2021-18. Is there a second? Was that you, Ms. Warden?
It is.
All right, Ms. Warden seconded it. Okay, further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to reference the 2015 housing study and say that there is a serious need for housing. And I want to thank all the people who have put all the planning into this proposal. I definitely think we need housing. We need different types of housing within the city of Worcester to meet the current need of the hour. What I don't agree with, and what I think would be a huge mistake, is to rezone the property before us this evening and try to fix that problem all in one fell swoop, if you will. I think the density is way too high. I think to try to say that it's compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods in the immediate vicinity is beyond a stretch. I don't think it's true. I appreciate Lemon Development's diligence to try to attain that and to take a few steps in that direction. I still think that it's far from sufficient to just put single family unattached housing all around that. We're not talking about being up against just an R1 neighborhood. We're talking about plopping this down pretty much in the center of an R1 area. And I just think to try to say that there's not going to be a significant adverse impact on the surrounding property values in the vicinity is just not reality. So I do agree that we need new market rate housing construction. We need new projects. This is a huge need. I have felt a lot of pressure because of the need. But by the same token, I think it would be a huge mistake to rezone this property because it is in no way going to have a positive effect on the surrounding vicinity. And the density is just way too high. And I guess I just want to end with a question for our Lemon Development representative. And I want to thank him and his team for all the work that they've put into this. Would they consider a less dense plan if this gets voted down this evening?
David, thank you for the question. I believe we've already done that. This is our second attempt of getting this rezoned. We have met with the city, as was indicated earlier, and we made this less dense. We added those detached single-family homes. There's a lot of things that go into putting a plan together that we've presented, and to make it work for us and to make it viable. What we're presenting today is what we're moving forward with. And if it doesn't have the opportunity to get passed, then it is what it is. But what the plan we have in front of you has already had a lot of different considerations made to it, and that's what we're sticking with.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Mr. Ansel.
Yes, thank you. Would like to compliment Andrew Dutton and the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has been very diligent in its review and discussions, having rejected the initial proposal from Lemon Development, and then also the representatives of Lemon Development for revising their initial plan and reducing the number of units on the parcel. And one of the highlights that I compared the Scottish Highland, and I do realize it's across the street, it's not in our backyard, it's more in our front yard. But as I noted, that is twice the density, as noted, Mr. Silvestri, as the proposed plot with the Lemon Development. So when we're talking comparative terms, the Scottish Highland as the baseline has twice the density per acre of the development. So we're really taking the recommendation of the Planning Commission, which, by the way, was unanimous, no dissenting votes. They've worked very hard and deliberately and thoroughly, and the developer has made adjustments. And having confidence in Lemon Development in terms of the pride of their craftsmanship and the quality of their homes and rental units is certainly a positive validator that this will, along with the statistics as noted by Mr. Scavelli, that higher density planned developments that are done well really don't negatively impact, according to the survey and the studies, current homeowners. There's trepidation and concern because this is a significant change of dynamics to the relative rural setting that Mel Lane has enjoyed for the last 40 years. But again, recognizing the overall professionalism and quality of the Lemon developments, I think we're all going to be pleased when this commences and as it continues to expand and provide the valuable housing needs that we certainly are facing here in Worcester. So Lemon Developments, do a good job, make us all proud, because this is going to be very important. And I know you have focus in other potential areas within our community. And thank you for your diligence, Andrew, the Planning Commission, and the rest of council.
I have a question for Mr. Dunton. Mr. Dunton, or maybe it's more of a statement, then you can correct me as to how off base I am. And having always appreciated the law, and I think I remember reading early on what you had said, that really before us tonight is whether or not what we're voting on is that the application meets the criteria under the law. Is that kind of encapsulate the gist of what the issue is tonight?
Yes, that's correct. Ultimately, you're considering the application against the review criteria of 110503E1 and 111106A, which you have in your packet there, which cover a variety of topics from compatibility and appropriateness of the development.
All right, so I do read what you or listen to what you have to say, so I appreciate that. And one other thing, when a parcel of land gets annexed into the city of Worcester, what's the usual zoning designation?
The current default zoning would be R1, which is suburban single-family residential, unless it's brought to council, usually along with the annexation for a different zoning classification.
So so based on that, R1 is just the designated, and frequently that gets changed down the road when a piece is annexed. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was previously agriculture. AG was previously the default zoning. I believe in 2018 we changed that to R1. So there were quite a few parcels brought in zoned R1 by default.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate everyone's hard work, and I appreciate the Planning Commission, because that's an unpaid volunteer group, and they spend a lot of hours that most of us never see, and I appreciate what they've done and what they've presented to council for consideration this evening.
Mr. Sanders, Scott Myers.
Yes.
I just wanted to note that I certainly appreciate the comments of the neighborhoods and the neighbors on Mel Lane. I did attend the meeting that was referred to, I guess, 2 years ago. Time flies during COVID. I guess it's been 2 years already, Mr. Mayor Brenneman, that we were out there, but I've been up there a couple of times. I've walked the entire length of Mel Lane, and as well as gone down to Mr. Swissgood's house and walked up to the back of his lot to look over this plan or future development. I certainly respect Mr. Silvestri's comments and the fact that he represents the folks there that are not in favor of this. I represent Ward 4. The majority of my constituents, a lot of them are referring to this from Mr. Malay's letter of the business people in the community, the WEDC, the Chamber of Commerce. So I'm going to be voting in favor, but I certainly understand the concerns of the people in Mel Lane, and I appreciate that Mr. Silvestri, as their representative, certainly voicing and concurring with their concerns. I will say, if the access road that was an issue when we looked at this, I think the first development, which got rejected for housing, if that had been remained open for traffic to Mel Lane, I'd be voting against it. That accommodation to protect their neighborhood and the safety of people walking in those streets with no sidewalks, that was a big accommodation, I think, that we've made. And again, if we hadn't been closing that off to emergency vehicles only, I would probably be voting against it this evening. But I think with the changes that the city administration, the planning commission, and the Lemon development people have made, I'm going to be supporting it. Thank you.
Seeing no one has anything else, Mr. Paulo, I will ask you to call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
No.
Warden,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
No.
and Bostancic.
Yes.
Mike, you're muted.
Well, I counted that there were 5 in favor, 2 against, so the motion to adopt passes. Now turn to new business, which will be the first reading of ordinance 2021-19. It'll be presented by Mr. Ansel. It is scheduled for 3 readings. Mr. Paulo, would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2021-19. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an enterprise zone agreement with Pittsburgh Avenue Properties LLC for certain tax incentives for immediate enactment.
Mr. Ansel, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank Mr. Miller for joining us this evening. This is an exciting piece of legislation supporting an existing successful company within the city of Wooster. The plot plan that has been provided by Jonathan Millay in their enterprise zone request shows the addition of a 13,500 square foot at the rear of their property. And that's really an unusual parcel. And this is a relatively small addition, albeit an expensive addition, because they're going to be expanding their paint line and processing capabilities within the facility for a total expansion of property between 950,000 and 1.25 million of new construction. But when they install the equipment and the supporting equipment, it'll be close to $1.5 to $2 million. So it is a very sizable and strategic investment for a local business who has expanded very nicely in spite of the roller coaster economy that we've been in. And the only challenge that I see internally is, and this is something that Mr. Miller and his team is going to have to deal with, there is a lot of activity on that parcel. This will enhance within reasonable growth realms. They're talking about adding about 15 new jobs over a 36-month period. So it is manageable growth, but it just allows them to improve their current processes, I'm sure, with more EPA compliant, favorable, more efficient technologies and so forth. So it will certainly enhance their overall business model. And just as a reference point, they are marketing their products to 36 states within the United States. It's pretty darn impressive to see a startup company like EPAC not only grow, but thrive and now to enhance production capabilities at their existing site with nominal employee growth, but sizable investment certainly has a lot of merit. And I'll let Jonathan talk momentarily, but we saw the financial calculations. The annual savings associated with this request is between $9,000 and $12,500. Their current tax base is about $65,000 a year. So it is an advantage for them to expand at this site. They are good taxpayers with their existing industrial base, and it's very positive and favorable that they continue to grow and expand on that parcel. But again, the challenge is now going to be maintaining the flow and the productivity at that site, because it'll be pretty constrained at this point in time with the topography of that existing parcel. So, Mr. Millay, would you like to add any more comments this evening regarding the EPAC request for enterprise zone?
Well, thank you, Mr. Ansel. I believe you covered almost all of it there. The only point that we'd like to share also is that we appreciate the opportunity to be able to discuss this project with EPAC Manufacturing. Jason, I believe it was back in November or December that we were really talking in earnest about trying to find opportunities to keep this project at this specific site, being that it is a landlocked location and has some terrain issues. So the proposal that is here this evening is actually something that goes back to last year, and is an opportunity really to allow EPAC Manufacturing to expand in the city of Worcester by taking what's really even though this looks like a smaller square footage project, it's pretty creative considering the land constraints in this location. So again, would just like to highlight in the past, EPAC Manufacturing, as Mr. Ansel shared, is covering the entire eastern and central United States now as it continues to grow. 120 employees currently call the facility here on East Pittsburgh Avenue home, and certainly would welcome the opportunity to see the company expand and grow with an additional minimum of 15. So that gives us an overall revenue gain to exemption ratio of 1.32. So with all those metrics, this is a really good opportunity for hopefully EPAC, but also the community to partner with EPAC to help make this project happen here in our city.
Thank you, Jonathan. Mr. Miller, would you like to make any comments?
I'd just like to thank the council for consideration. We appreciate being a part of the community. Since we've moved to Worcester, I was doing a little math. I think we've grown 4 times the size as what we were when we moved into town. Like it's been stated, we service the eastern United States, and we do that out of Worcester. Actually, and I wanted to point out, just from a job standpoint, we average, I would say, over the years of about 12% of our workforce are within a 3-mile radius, and about 36% are located within Wayne County. So we are being able to provide jobs, and good jobs. They're welding jobs. We also provide weld training for if someone doesn't have the skill and wants to learn the skill. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And we feel really good about the opportunity that this new building is going to create. We're going to be building our small units out of this building. That's why the size is smaller. So if you picture the dumpsters outside of a gas station or a restaurant, that size of unit. So it's a small footprint, but it will really free up space in our main plant so that we can build our larger units more efficiently. And outside of this investment, we have some really high dollar equipment that we're putting in conjunction with this to expand those lines and to make those lines more efficient and safer for our employees as well. So this is really a one piece of a bigger concept.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. It's nice of you to have that vision and commitment to our community. And it's a very impressive story to see the growth and continued expansion there. And we can certainly all recall the pallet company that was there as your predecessor. It certainly was not as successful as you have been at that location. I want to further highlight that this was presented to Worcester City Schools and the Wayne County Career Center, and no exceptions were noted. And it received unanimous approval at last week's Wooster Growth meeting. So, and received affirmative approval and recommendation for the enterprise zone. So with that being noted and understanding all of the figures presented, I will motion to suspend the rules this evening and move ordinance 2021-19 to third and final reading.
Motion by Mr. Ansel to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second, Myers.
Second by Mr. Myers. Mr. Paula, would you please call the roll on the suspension of the rules?
Cavan,
No.
Warden,
No.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Bastancik,
No.
and Ansel.
Yes.
John, can I make a comment if I can?
Please.
Yeah, I just had some calls about that the last couple days, and that's why I'd like to have at least another 2 weeks to look this over and to talk to some residents around the area. So
That's
not
fine.
that per se against it, but I really need to hear from the neighbors.
That is fine.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
So I guess that means we keep this on first reading this evening, Mr. President.
That is correct. The rules were not suspended. So
Cool.
And the final piece of legislation this evening is resolution number 2021-25. Will be presented by Mr. Ansel. It appears to be a budgeted item, so will not be the suspension of the rules, but it does need Ms. DiPaolo to read the title, if she would, please.
Resolution number 2021-25. A resolution authorizing the Director of Finance to issue payment for services rendered prior to the fiscal officer's certification of availability of funds and providing for immediate enactment.
Mr. Ansel, the floor is yours.
Yes, this is an administrative matter. This relates to the City Hall parking lot lighting project, a conversion to LED lighting, which is budgeted as Mr. Beitendijk, President Beitendijk highlighted. The project was scheduled to commence in March, April timeframe, which it did. But Carla and Building Standards did enter the PO in March, but in an effort to avoid a price increase, the light and the light post were delivered early. So they billed us for the material prior to the PO being issued. So this is nothing more than approving the expenditure with a PO after the materials were delivered. So it, again, a budgeted item, it was planned, but it was just a timing issue. And the expenditure amount was $18,055.38. So with that being very straightforward and it being a budgeted item, I will move to suspend the rules this evening and move resolution 2021-25 to third and final reading.
Since it's budgeted, you just.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
Mr. Cavan.
Second by Mr. Cavan. Any discussion?
Yeah, I was just curious, the 8,000, is that the total amount or is that just the overage amount from the PO? Does any?
I believe that's the total amount.
And what's the suspected payback in the LED lights versus the ones we were using?
Well, I don't know that exact number, but I will tell you, we had hardly any lights at all. We only had a few old fixtures, those old green metal poles that were rusting and getting ready to fall down. So it's more of anything. It's just having lights now where we didn't have lights previously.
Mr. Sanders, I will take the hit here. A couple of years ago, I was wandering out there when it was so dark, and there was a catch basin that was about a foot deeper than what the driveway or parking area was. I stepped in there. Lucky I didn't break my leg. Had it been better lighted, I would have seen it. So I think that was probably the impetus for looking for better ways to light that parking area.
Would you have sued?
It was definitely not open and obvious at that time of night.
Well, it's comforting to know we also got the material at a lower price than what we would have had it been delivered later. So with the extreme increases in building materials that we've seen lately, I'm sure the city had quite a savings. So thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Bastancik,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
and Cavan.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 2021-25 passes, brings us to the miscellaneous portion. And I'm gonna start on the bottom row, which will be Silvestri, Myers, Sanders, and Bastancik. So we'll start with Mr. Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to thank everyone for the open and lively discussion of the rezoning of the property that we considered this evening. And I still would have liked to see a project go through that was a lot less dense than what was proposed. I think R3 is extreme to put in that general area, but I do want to thank everyone who put all the time into the project, and want to thank everyone for their comments. Thank you.
Mr. Myers.
Thank you, President Bidendijk. Go through this pretty quickly. I just certainly want to congratulate Officers Hartzler and Whitmore on their outstanding accommodations this year from our Worcester Police Department. I'm certainly going to miss Dr. Tefts and Mr. Pukas in their service to our community at Worcester City Schools and the WEDC. Wish them both the best in their work going forward. And other than that, I don't have anything further to add this evening. Thank you. Oh, well, happy birthday, Andre.
Sanders.
After Mr. Myers, I have nothing to add.
Mr. Bastancik.
Yeah, just one thing. I understand the concern of the Mel Lane residents. I've talked to them a lot over the years about their area, flooding problems, and et cetera. I understand they wanting to have that area as it was 30, 40 years ago. They've been there a lot. There's been a lot of long-term residents there, and change can be hard. But now that the last 30 years have been into the city, development has gone out to that area, and sometimes change comes along. And if I really had felt that this was in an not appropriate zoning change, I would not have hesitated to vote no. I mean, I voted no on the first project, which was the Baker project, but for a different reason. But as I remember at the time, they also opposed that project, and that was all R1 housing. I really feel that once that housing in this Lemon Properties has an excellent reputation, I think they will find that their housing priorities will be fine. And I think they will find that's a high quality build. But I do understand the concerns, but sometimes And I really do not feel it's going to be an inappropriate addition to the neighborhood. And I hope they feel differently when it's built, but I think that when it's all said and done, I think it'll be okay. That's all.
Mayor Brenneman, could you dismiss the finance director so that I don't get motion sickness from his camera view, please? Let's wish him a happy birthday and let him go.
Yeah, there you go. Well, sometimes he's a little uncontrollable, as you can tell.
I just wanted to tell him that at my age, I don't even remember being his age. So enjoy it while it lasts there, pal.
Luckily, we're not done with the meeting here, so.
Mr. Cavan.
In light of everything said, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Mr. Ansel.
Yes, I want to commend council for the lively discussion and the objective feedback regarding the Mel Lane initiative, Melrose expansion. This was controversial and emotional. Change is always that way. I think we provided the residents due diligence. We voiced our concerns and we represented our constituents. And that's really the top priority of city council. So I commend everyone, and great closing comments this evening. So in an effort to avoid redundancy, that's all I have. Thank you.
And Ms. Warden will give you the last word here.
Thank you, President Biden-Dyke. I've received a couple of comments from community members over recent months on this particular subject. So I just wanted to publicly commend the folks that have been exercising their First Amendment right to peacefully gather and demonstrate down on our square. Whether or not you agree with what any of the group's messages are, I think it's just important to acknowledge that they have largely been peaceful and respectful of the downtown public space and the community members that are shopping and dining down there. Not all communities, as we all know, are fortunate enough to see the same outcome during their demonstration. So thank you to all involved. We appreciate that. And that is all I have.
And I see Mr. Ansel has
Motion
moved
to adjourn, Mr. President.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Silvestri. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Feel better,
Okay, we
Jennifer.
are adjourned. Thank you, one and all.
Good night, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
Have a good night.